Hello class, this is a recording of our hyena lecture. So we highlighted various different aspects of this species, spotted hyena, Crocuta in class, and I'm going to go over that lecture here more succinctly. So let's first take a look at the video that I showed in class.
Hyenas. Weighing in at up to 80 kilograms and capable of running at speeds of up to 60 kilometers per hour, the hyena is in fact Africa's most successful predator. Often depicted as stupid, cowardly and greedy, they have a bad public image. But we're going to debunk the myths surrounding these misunderstood animals and explore some of the more positive character traits of the spotted hyena. Do females always lead their clan? And what is it about hyenas that has allowed them to thrive? Far from their dim-witted, infamous animated portrayal, spotted hyenas are in fact highly intelligent animals. This is partly thanks to having evolved an extraordinarily intricate social structure, more similar in many ways to primates than carnivores. Like primates, they can solve puzzles, and they even beat chimpanzees in some problem-solving tests. Unusual amongst mammals, the female spotted hyenas are larger than the males, and unlike other carnivores, they form large groups or clans where the females are top of the pecking order. These groups can be up to 100 strong, and like a monarchy, when the alpha female dies, her daughter will take the crown, with her daughters in turn inheriting the position below her. Hyenas not only recognise rank and social standing, but they can identify family members as distant as their great aunts, helping them form alliances within the clan in a way that is more typically seen in the most intelligent of animals. Lovingly nursing and breastfeeding their young for 1 to 2 years, devoted mother hyenas also spend several hours playing and wrestling with their pups each day. This kind of long-term bonding is again more often found in primate society than amongst carnivores. Everyone knows that hyenas may scavenge their meals, but in fact, they are also fearsome predators. When hunting as a pack, they can take down animals as big as a buffalo or even baby elephants. And while they won't pass up the opportunity for an easy meal, contrary to popular belief, a hyena is more likely to have its prey stolen by a lion than the other way round. Hyenas are formidable beasts, built for strength and endurance. Their incredibly muscular jaws are even more powerful than a grizzly bear's. And with highly concentrated stomach acid, hyenas can eat and digest entire carcasses, crushing and swallowing bones up to 7 centimeters thick, quickly recycling nutrients back into the environment. This ability to both hunt, scavenge, and consume the parts of a carcass that other animals leave behind has made them a highly successful species. Loving, devoted, and intelligent animals with a strong sense of family. Perhaps it's time we update our outdated perception of the humble hyena.
Now, the things that are important to remember for our analysis here in this lecture that they mentioned in the video some of them at least. The spotted hyena is a very social carnivore. They're found widespread throughout sub-Saharan Africa and the grasslands and savannas. And despite their reputation, they're very skilled hunters, among the most successful large carnivores in Africa. And they have a reputation of stealing food from other predators, lions, for example. But actually the opposite is true. Lions are more likely to steal from hyenas than the other way around. They can live in very large clans of up to 130 individuals. Clans can be smaller, of course. And the members know each other individually. They defend a common territory, and they help each other rear young communally. One standout morphological feature of the spotted hyena is that they have one of the most well-endowed jaws of any carnivores for their size. Their skulls are especially evolved to withstand large amounts of force. They have very intense musculature and skeletal anatomy to hold those muscles to generate a lot of force when biting. You can see compared to a mountain lion and a gray wolf, they have a much wider skull. So let's put this in perspective, comparing bite force across vertebrate taxa. Humans have 120, their bite force is 120 pounds per square inch. Domesticated dogs, the large breeds, about twice that, 250. Jumping up to a grizzly bear, nearly 1,000 pounds per square inch, which is where we find our lion. Spotted hyena bests both the grizzly bear and the lion, despite being smaller, at a record 1,140 pounds per square inch, which is just shy of being on par with polar bears at 1,200 pounds per square inch. And here you can see, relative to the size of the polar bear, hyenas are very much smaller, but have approximately the same bite force. So this will be important later in the lecture. So spotted hyenas societies are unlike any other group of living mammalian carnivore. They're quite a bit different when compared to other carnivores that live socially. Relatedness in most carnivore societies is very high, at least for one of the sexes. And they're basically extended families. Most social carnivores live in relatively small groups, and social group members tend to be stable across time. It's quite a bit different for spotted hyenas. Their societies are structured more like primate societies. In spotted hyenas and primates, group relatedness tends to be relatively low, and there are multiple generations of adults of both sexes. Group membership is very dynamic. They live in what's known as fusion-fission societies, in which the size and composition of the social group changes as time passes. Individuals and small groups leave and join repeatedly and reversibly. So two smaller clans might join up to form a larger clan, and they might separate again, and vice versa across time. In spotted hyenas, adult males disperse, and adult females show natal philopatry. And philopatry basically just means to stay in one space, and natal philopatry means to remain in the location where you were born. And so we find that to be the case with females. Spotted hyenas have a very strict linear dominance hierarchy, and all females are dominant over all males. Right here is a grid of data from a study on a specific, on a handful of individuals from a specific clan. Their names are coded, abbreviated. Along the top row, we have individual columns that shows how many times this individual lost. And you can reference the rows to see who they lost to. So taking a look at Murphy, which is the individual all the way on the left, on the top, we can see going down Murphy's column, there are no numbers. That means Murphy never lost to anybody. Next to Murphy is Sean. And we can see that Sean lost 24 times to Murphy. And then just one other loss to MP. But no other losses to anyone else. As we go along from left to right, we can see accumulation of more and more losses. But these individuals rarely lose to anyone ranking lower than them. And there are just two exceptions, Sean and MP, losing just a few times, one or two times, to a lower ranked hyena. The three hyenas all the way on the right that are colored green, Big, BP, and Boss. These are males. And we can see that they have lost quite a bit to all of the females who rank higher than them. And they have won no competitions with any of the females. So this is a very strict linear hierarchy. In fact, cubs outrank males, and their rank among females is based on maternal rank inheritance. So cubs with a higher ranked female outrank cubs whose mother is a lower ranked female. And you can see an image here directly below on the left. These are two cubs that are exhibiting dominant posture, raised heads, raised tails, forward-leaning posture to an adult male who's showing submissive posture, lowered head, lowered tail, not making direct eye contact. Now, your place in hyena society matters, especially if you're a developing cub. Pictured here are two hyenas that were born just 3 days apart, and you can see a dramatic difference in their size. They're 6 months old. Hyenas wean at 13 months, and they become sexually mature at 2 years. You can see the larger hyena was born to the highest ranked female, and the smaller hyena was born to the 17th ranked female, so pretty low down in the hierarchy. And despite being nearly the exact same age, the individual of the higher ranked female is much larger because it's been afforded better access to nutrients. And so let's take a look at some data here that indicate that rank matters for a number of different parameters. First, the x-axis is our female ranked. Starting all the way on the left would be the highest ranked individual, all the way out to the 20th ranked individual, the far right of our x-axis. The y-axis is age at first parturition, which just means giving birth. And we can see that the higher ranked you are, the younger you are when you first give birth. And when it comes to maximizing lifelong reproductive success, starting reproducing earlier is better. You have more opportunities to reproduce. Females from higher ranked mothers have more offspring per year, and more offspring survive to sexual maturity. Our graph on the left taking a look at the social rank of the mother. Again, the left part of that x-axis is the more highly ranked female mothers. And on the y-axis, offspring per year. So if your mother is higher ranked, you're more likely to give birth to 2 offspring per year, whereas if your mother is lower ranked, on average, you're going to give birth to 1 offspring per year. And again, taking a look at mother's social rank on the graph on the right, compared to number of offspring surviving to reproductive maturity per year. If you were born to a high-ranked mother, your cubs are more likely to survive to become sexually mature and reproduce themselves. Another interesting feature of hyenas is that they lack sex differences that are the most common sex differences in other mammalian species. Across mammalian taxa, the general trend is males are larger, they have greater musculature, and they, on average, exhibit more aggressive behaviors across a wider variety of contexts. But this is not the case for spotted hyenas. Morphologically, they're relatively similar. Similar in size. Females are a little bit bigger, but there's enough variation and overlap where it's difficult to sex individuals based on their size among spotted hyenas. But behaviorally, they're much more distinct. Females are much more aggressive than males, as you can see here. I'm taking a look at mean aggression intensity per session on the right and mean aggression rate per session on the left. So they show a higher rate of aggressive instances, and those aggressive encounters are more intense on average than what we see in males. And this aggressive behavior is linked to androgen exposure, specifically in utero. And so our graph on the left, the x-axis, maternal fecal androgens. So this is measuring metabolites of androgen hormones, among which testosterone is the most well-known and prevalent. And so this is basically looking for signals of testosterone in feces to get an estimate, a proxy of how much testosterone is circulating in the animal. And so taking a look at these measures of androgens in a pregnant female, and then correlating that with the hourly rate of aggression towards peers of the juveniles, we see that juveniles that experienced, or I should say juveniles whose mothers had higher levels of androgens while those juveniles were gestating, tend to show more aggression towards their juvenile peers. And again, this correlates to these individuals as adults as well. Adults that show higher rates of aggression towards other adults tend to have had mothers that had higher concentrations of androgens when they were gestating. One of the mechanistic explanations for high levels of androgens in spotted hyenas is that they lack a specific enzyme called aromatase. So you can take a blood sample from a female and measure concentrations of androgens, and you'll find unusually high concentrations, and especially of this precursor to testosterone, androstenedione. and this enzyme aromatase that converts androstenedione to testosterone. So high levels of androstenedione, low levels of aromatase. So this precursor gets converted to testosterone. If they had high levels of aromatase, more of it would be converted to estrone, which is a type of estrogen. And so this may explain why we see high levels of testosterone in female spotted hyenas. Well, let's take a quick look at a video of an experiment that was done in which female hyenas exposure to high androgens in utero was pharmacologically blocked in their mothers. And we'll see a stark contrast in how they behave towards males.
An experiment, and I think I'm going to show you the only experiment that's ever likely to be seen looking at the effects of a removal of androgens from the developmental system. This was an experiment done by Steve Glickman and his colleagues at UC Berkeley when the captive hyena colony right before it closed. And I'm going to show you two trials here. These are literally the only two trials in existence because then the colony ran out of money and ended. But what we see is I'm going to show you two trials, the first one of which is this female has just been allowed into the enclosure, and there's two chunks of meat, or bones and meat, tied to the fence over there, and she's going to go in and start feeding, and then a male's going to try to come join her, and you're going to see what the normal situation is for adult male hyenas in nature. They get the crap beat out of them. And then we also see the next trial is going to be the female. Actually, her mother was treated with two different types of anti-androgens throughout pregnancy, and she is an entirely different organism. Here comes the male. So he's appeasing her now, and that's pretty much what you see during male-female interactions in nature. He's going to go away and make another drive-by. Here's the anti-androgen treated female and her male. Feeding within a body length of her.
Another interesting feature of spotted hyenas, for which they're pretty well known for, is their unusual reproductive anatomy. Before I said that they're relatively monomorphic, and at least superficially, their gross anatomy, external anatomy, they're quite remarkably similar. Their external genitalia between the sexes is remarkably similar. On the left you can see a male penis, and on the right you can see what has been termed a pseudopenis, which is it's in a large clitoris. And so this enlarged clitoris of the female hyena is typically as long as a male's penis. They have no external vaginal opening, and the labia have been fused developmentally to form what's known as a pseudoscrotum. And they have a single urogenital canal through which the females urinate, copulate, and give birth. This is dramatically different than all other mammalian species. This is similar to what we see in avian species. They have a single urogenital canal in which they expel waste, copulate, and lay eggs. So what are the consequences of this unique external reproductive anatomy in female spotted hyenas? Mating is more laborious for the males than any other mammal. It's quite difficult to mate. And this makes sexual coercion or forced copulation impossible in this species. In order for the males to successfully mate, they have to have the full cooperation of the females. Another consequence, a literally deadly consequence, is that 60% of young that are born to new mothers are stillborn. Over half of the cubs born to first-time mothers die due to hypoxia, so they suffocate because the delivery takes so long, right? Because delivery happens through that enlarged clitoris. And 15% of those females that are giving birth for the first time don't survive. And so why do hyenas have such seemingly costly reproductive anatomy if it's a threat to their lives and their cubs, their unborn cubs? Why has that evolved? Why has that not been selective out? Because that seems like a huge cost to an individual's reproductive success. So we can approach this from our two different lenses, proximate and ultimate, in answering this question. Why do hyenas have this seemingly costly reproductive anatomy? So proximately, we can understand sort of how it works, how it develops, right? So how does this develop in an individual? Development of male-like external genitalia in females is thought to be influenced by the high androgen exposure. Indeed, we know among mammals that androgens are responsible for the development of primary and secondary sex characteristics, including external genitalia. However, development of the genital tubercles into a phallus takes place very early in development. So the first development of external genitalia actually takes place before these embryos have developed gonads and are producing androgens themselves. So this is a little bit counterintuitive, because in most mammals, the primary mode of development of the early external genitalia development is a consequence of a bipotential tissue exposure to testosterone and dihydrogen testosterone, so two different androgens. And so all embryos have have what's known as a bipotential tissue. The tissue that will become external genitalia in male or female mammals can go either way. It can develop either way. And what sends it down one path or the other is the concentrations of androgens that are circulating. Those androgens are typically coming from the gonads, the testes in males, right? And of course the absence of it when there are no testes or ovaries in biological typical females. But interesting, we see this developing before hyenas even have fully developed gonads. So it's thought that the androgen influence on the development of this external genitalia is as a consequence of the very high circulating levels of androgens of the female, of the mother female that is gestating the embryo. So unlike all other, or the vast majority of other mammals, hyena females have very high concentrations of testosterone. And they share a blood supply and circulation with their developing embryos. So these embryos would be exposed to the maternal androgens. So we can explore, after exploring the proximate mechanism of this external genitalia, we can explore the ultimate explanation, which perhaps is a little less straightforward. why did this phenomenon evolve? Why was it not selected out right away? So, first, we need to understand that hyena feeding is very competitive and resources are very limited. More aggressive females are better able to compete among other females for those limited resources. And they're not only competing for themselves, but they're competing for their young. Both their young that they might be currently gestating, right? Their nutrition affects the development of those young in utero. And then also afterwards, they nurse, they produce milk, which requires resources and nutrition. And then even after hyena cubs have weaned, they still rely on their mother to get access to prey. Additionally, the development of hyena is relatively slow compared to other mammals. We can see here a linear scatter plot of a variety of different mammalian species. X-axis is their adult body mass, their average adult body mass, and then the age of weaning on the y-axis. So you can see that as larger species tend to take longer to wean. So something really big, like an elephant, their young are going to nurse for much longer than a mouse. We can see along this general trend, though, are 3 different species of bone-cracking hyenas are much higher along the age of weaning. So if they were like other mammals, we would expect these hyenas, based on their body size, to wean around 5 months. But they're weaning between 10 and 15 months, around 1 year, right, which is over twice as long as what you would expect given their size. One of the reasons for this is because the development of their musculature and cranial anatomy takes much longer to develop, which is very important for them to access nutrition because they are eating very large wild game and accessing and eating bones as well. And we can see here an image of the skull development of spotted hyenas from 3 months all the way to 11 years. You can even see at 2 years when they're sexually mature, their skulls are markedly underdeveloped compared to a full-grown adult. All right, so they won't be able to access all of the nutrients, right? The 2-year-old isn't going to be able to crack a giraffe femur like this 11-year-old hyena is going to be able to. So they have limited access to nutrition. So this is why they rely on their mothers to access nutrition. This is why it takes longer for them to wean, and why they rely on their mothers for, why they're nutritionally dependent on their mothers even after they wean. And we can take a look here at a survival curve. We're taking a look at the proportion of surviving young that have high-ranked mothers and young that have low-ranked mothers. And the way to read this graph is that all the way on the left, the x-axis is time 0, where we have 100% of all of our individuals surviving, and you track them across multiple months. And every time an individual dies, the data point, the circle or the triangle, goes down according to what proportion is still surviving. At the end of 14 months, we can see that individuals that are born to high-ranked mothers, about 80% of them have survived, as opposed to young that have been born to low-ranked mothers. About 35-40% of them have survived. So having a higher-ranked mother, which means that you have a more aggressive mother, you're more likely to survive, because this mother has better access to nutrition, and so do you. So let's see if we can't tie all this together to get an ultimate hypothesis for why spotted hyenas have this unique reproductive anatomy, and it hasn't been selected out. The pseudopenis in the female spotted hyena is thought to be not necessarily an adaptive trait, but a developmental consequence of positive selection for female aggression. So this trait, it's thought, it indeed confers a cost, but it's a consequence. It is tagged along with a benefit that's even greater than the cost of the anatomy itself. So aggressive phenotypes are in part a result of high androgen exposure during development. Another consequence of that high androgen exposure necessarily in mammals is the development of this female genitalia that is more male-like. More aggressive females tend to be highly ranked in the social hierarchy and are better able to compete for scarce food resources and support their young during the long maturation process. And so this unique anatomy is thought to be just a consequence of how important it is for female spotted hyenas to be aggressive. Without being aggressive, your chances of reproducing successfully are very, very low. In order to be really, really aggressive, you need exposure to high concentrations of androgens during development. And a consequence of that is the development of this male-like external genitalia. And so this lecture of the hyena, this wraps up the end of everything that will be covered on the exam. Right, so we should review the hyenas here. We also talked at length about the nervous system and protozoa taxa as well. So good luck, and I'll see you on Friday.